In the 80s, interest rates were over 20%. In the 90s, they were 5%. And in 2022, they were 2%. But by 2024, they hit 7%. You get my point? What do all of these adjustments actually mean, and what influenced them to go up and down? But before that, there was a question I didn't get to in the first segment, and I wanted to ask this just to our panel here. So the gold standard was dropped in 1933. Then 1935, the Bank of Canada now takes control on deciding on interest rates, and we can start fluctuating interest rates. Why did we do that? Do we feel we're better equipped to manage our own rates so that we can manage our own dollar value? Is that I'm just trying to understand the history of why we chose to do it this way, if it's hurting us so much.
This might be a question for the bank.
Yeah, Vince, let me throw it to you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, considering it's about 50 years before I was born, I mean, but basically, centralization for sure is the goal. I think definitely keeping a check on monetary and fiscal policies, and also there's also the link between the Bank of Canada and the Bank of International Settlements out in Switzerland, which has a link with the central bank in England and the Federal Reserve, and if you look at all the G7 countries and their central banking system are all connected.
Oh, I see. Okay, so it's basically bringing the world together in a way that everybody kind of does it the same way.
Probably in the name of stability at the time. I don't know quite frankly why.
The stability doesn't seem like it's really working out for us right now. I mean, we'll get into this in the third segment, but how there's an equilibrium, and it seems like that equilibrium is just changing like way faster. Instead of like 10, 15, 20 years, now it's like 5 years, 3 years.
You mean we're getting a lot of volatility?
Yeah, it's way too volatile. But one of the questions I had, and Sasan, I want to invite you in on this, is interest rates and the affordability crisis. Is there a correlation there?
I think like in general, interest rates aren't necessarily the root cause of affordability, but because interest rates are just a tool that Bank of Canada uses, for example, to control inflation and stabilize the economy, the root cause of affordability is more to do with like housing supplies, like demands for housing, rising construction costs.
Right, because interest rates are a reaction to something, right?
Exactly, reaction to it. Like interest rates do play a role in affordability because of obviously higher mortgage costs, but they're a reaction, not actually the foundation of affordability.
I would also argue though as well, just to add to that, is that as rates went down to a point where they would have never been before, and we were getting variable rates at 1.45, 1.35%, that definitely did have an impact on the value of homes. And so values of homes were inflated definitely 2-3 years ago.
Because it was cheaper to own a home.
Yeah, and easier to qualify for.
Right,
and so therefore all these bidding wars came in, inflated the values, and now they're down, 20%, 25%.
Right, because in a way, homes were almost free. You could qualify for a loan so much easier, right? And then on top of that, you only had to pay 1-2% on the $500,000 you loaned from the bank. That actually makes a lot of sense. Right. What moments in history influenced the Bank of Canada? You're a history geek here. What moments in history, when I brought up 5%, then 7%, then 19% or 2%?
Oh boy.
What did we see in history that influenced the Bank of Canada in this way?
Well, the 1970s, if you were the president or the prime minister of any country, you weren't going home for Thanksgiving. No, especially in North America. No, well, not just oil crisis, stagflation, energy crises. We just lost President Carter. Look what he went through in his entire presidency. Stagflation, rising unemployment, the big energy crisis, the crisis in the Middle East with Iran. That has big effect. And the way to combat inflation was he appointed, I believe it was in the United States, he appointed like a Republican central banker that basically said to him, I have to bring interest rates through the roof, because it's what's going to bring inflation down. This is the question I ask Canadians. What would you rather have in this country? Would you rather have low interest rates and the price of eggs, the price of gas, the price of everything going up by 8 and 9% per year? Or would you rather have interest rates hovering around 3 and 4%? We bring some stability back to the market. Housing comes down and corrects back to a little bit more normalcy. It's not. It's $300,000 more expensive on average in Niagara from when I started. So to tie all this together, those moments in history before the pandemic, like the 1990s when I was born, the early 90s, the economy was terrible.
From what I heard, they were
terrible. The 1982 recession, like those were causes for big interest rates to get the economy back on track. And the unemployment rate in 93 was like 12%.
Vince, we got like 10 seconds here. Are we
So-
losing the stability in our economy because of interest rates and our reaction on them?
Well, partly because, yes, I would say that someone once said that the central bank is not an AI bank. These are actually people who are making decisions,
Okay,
and they're emotional.
I got to cut you off here, but we'll be right back to keep this discussion going.